Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Mindful Musicians with Nancy Schleier. And today we have on Melonie Cannon, and she is the owner of Moonstone Drums. She also has a company called Earth and Sky where she does breath work and meditation. Today we're just going to talk about drumming and meditation. Her Facebook is Moonstone Drums and Meditation. And if you want to find her on Instagram, her Instagram handle is underscore Melonie, and that's Melonie dot Cannon with a Cannon underscore. And then, or you can just look her up using hashtag Moonstone Drums. All right,
Yay.
so welcome. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, all that good stuff.
I am in Utah, so I'm out west, and this is a unusual land. We have a land of a lot of different parts. We have high mountains, forests, and then we have desert as well. So this beautiful land that I grew up in that really informed who I became, as well as I have a dad who loved nature, can make anything grow, and he would take me out and we'd walk and hike, and he would point out the scientific names of every little flower. And then I have a mom who's super creative and just loves beauty. She's very much right brain and he's more left brain, and they came together and for a while. And I grew up in this place of kind of a liminal space between the two. Music was very important to them. Somehow I came into this family without the musical. I just didn't get it. My sister is a professional jazz singer. My other sister, she was this pianist, and they were all just amazing singers and musicians. And I was like, and I took piano for a year and a half. That was the days when like people could hit your hand, made mistakes. I remember on Saturday mornings, my sister and I would go to this piano teacher, and she would have all her students, and she would play chords, and we'd have to be like augmented fifth, minor, and I would just sit there going, "What is going on? I have no idea how to hear that." Or
Oh my
it
goodness.
was just for a musician. They were beautiful musicians, and I was.
That sounds like it would be stressful.
It
I had to do that in college, and that was stress, and that was my major.
made music very unpleasant, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. I just was a person, I was a tender soul.
Mm,
And I think as I got older, I just would tell myself the story. I'm not a musician. I can't sing. Then I had some vocal cord issues with my first pregnancy. My whole voice changed. My voice box got swollen and everything. That made it worse. And I was just like, look, I give up. And then I did some different healing modalities and was introduced to sound healing. And it was like my whole body went, I'm home. I am home because I understood frequency in a very somatic way. I'm
mhm.
an intuitive anyway, and live in that woo woo world anyway. I was like, I understand this. It was as simple to me as opening a book and reading it. I could hear people's energy in their bodies through sound. And as time went on, I got introduced to more instruments that are used in the healing modalities. The drum was just like, it's like the lights went on. And literally, it meshed that childhood I talked to you about, science and beauty, came
Mhm,
together for me in the drum. I think people who will be listening to this are musicians, and they will know what I'm talking about. When you
mhm.
find your instrument, we all have our instruments are our bodies, but when you find the one that it connects with, it's a powerful experience. Whether that's bagpipes or piano or whatever, violin or cello, whatever it is, you will know it. That is what makes a person stick with the instrument, I think, because their vibration matches the vibration of the instrument. And
Yeah.
it's almost like you're called to it.
I definitely felt that way, especially about piano. For me, music was this escape. Piano, for me, is like talking to a really good friend, and they're such a good listener. To me, I could just pour my whole soul into the piano, and people would be like, "Oh my gosh, that's beautiful." But really, it was just like me being my authentic self.
It's a reciprocal relationship. So you pulling your whole soul, but the piano is speaking back to you. That's how you're dear friends, right? It's friends for both because the piano's thrilled to have someone to listen, having it like its voice is being listened to as well. It's a beautiful combination, and that's how it was for me with the drum. Yeah.
You mentioned sound healing, and I'd love to know a little bit more about that and what that entails.
So, sound baths are when you go to a some sort of place, wherever, outside or an event center, whatever it is, yoga studio. You have a practitioner who has laid out a bunch of different kinds of instruments. But these
Mhm,
are not your typical instruments that you would see if you went to the symphony or something like that. These are
mhm,
instruments that are crystal bowls, tuning forks, drums, chimes. There's a lot of different ones. What they're really doing is making certain frequencies. Didgeridoo, they have a lot of different ones, and you could look them up. There's so many Shruti box, harmonium, all sorts of.
mhm.
So you just have to lay there and you allow the vibration to affect your body in some way. So cymatics, and you can look this up on YouTube or whatever. You can find 100 different videos. Is when vibration or certain frequencies or tones, notes, they create geometrical shapes. And so, what music does is it organizes, it takes chaos and sound and organizes it. So, say on your body, you have certain frequencies and notes, and they will organize your cell structures. And I know this kind of gets into a little bit of sacred geometry, but there is science behind it as well. If
Yeah.
you run a violin, you have sand on a flat plate, you run a violin string on it at a certain vibration, and it will vibrate into a shape, a geometrical shape. So that's cymatics. Now imagine doing that on a body. And what would happen to a person who needs healing, whether it's emotional, spiritual, physical healing? You are basically taking that chaos and making it organized. And that is a very layman's fundamental way of looking at it. But sound healing is allowing those frequencies to play into the body. I'm going to go now into the drum and I'm going to make it really simple and quick about it. You have blockages in your body that might come from an injury, or it might be even a broken heart,
Mhm.
emotional things that happen. And we store trauma in our bodies in different places. So when I drum over someone, I can hear the tone of the drum will change if they have a blockage. So if I'm drumming over their bodies, for example, and I will hear, oh, that sound bounced back. It didn't go through the body because body's composed of water mostly, right? And I'll go, oh, they have a blockage here because the tone bounced back and changed the tone of my drum. Then I know I can use sound and vibration to actually break up that energy. So then I will drum over. It's very intuitive. And then I'll just cue in what kind of drumming rhythm needs to be done, what movement of the instrument needs to be done to unblock that. I remember one woman, I was like, something's going on with your right ankle. You've got a blockage there. And she's all, no, my right ankle's fine. It's fine. My drum does not lie to me. I'm very in tune with my instrument and I'm in tune with this instrument in
Yeah.
here. And I'm like, no, I'm just going to keep working on that. So I did. And then when we were done with the session, she was like, oh my heavens, I had a huge bicycle accident when I was 8 years old. And my right ankle was completely like messed up and it has healed, but she still had a blockage in there. Even though it had healed, there was still scar tissue, and also just the emotional trauma of it was still in there. And so that was really a confirmation. And this happens all the time to me. That's sound healing. And then your body can heal itself. I'm going to add one more thing here. One of the most wonderful instruments to do this that you
Mhm.
came with is completely tuned to your frequency is your voice. So when you use an instrument, an outside instrument, and your voice together, which is perfect for you, you came to the world perfectly made with that voice to heal yourself. It is completely woo woo and out there, but even singing to that scar tissue, chanting, those kind of things, that is a form of mindfulness.
I remember talking to someone, this was several years ago, about how she had gone through abusive parents and things like that. And she was talking to her therapist, and her therapist said, "Have you tried singing?" And she was like, "What? What do you mean, have I tried singing?" And the therapist was telling her about a nerve that runs through, I think, our neck, but called the
The
vagus.
vagus nerve.
She was like, and once you stimulate that, it's going to release a lot of that.
The vagus nerve, you can just stimulate it through humming, those kind of things. We want to get ourselves in a parasympathetic nervous system. That's the one we want to affect. We want to get into that state
Mhm.
of calm and peace, mindfulness, and that's a great way to do it.
So you mentioned earlier that you use the drum in different ways, and I'd love it if you would like to show us maybe some of the
Okay.
different drumming techniques and, like, things like that. If you're comfortable with
Yeah,
that,
no,
that would
I don't have a body here, but I will show you just something that have so here's a drum that I made. I do drum making workshops, and
Oh, that's
each
beautiful.
thank you. These are shamanic drums. They're different than the hand frame drums you would find in the Middle East and that tradition. This
Mhm.
is more with a beater, and you can learn those different traditions. But drumming, you could here's like the basic heartbeat, for example. If I was working on someone I know who had trouble in a relationship, or they're working to heal a child parent relationship or something like that, and they're laying on in front of me, I really will tune into what's going on at that heart. I would play that rhythm, for example. And then I'm going to work in that space. Just wherever the blockages are, we want to work, you take the drum to that space. So if they're like, I just can't get clarity on something, where are we working? I'm brokenhearted, where am I working? I can't seem to move forward in my life, my business is stuck. I'm going down to their feet and their legs, because I want to work in those areas where they need it for the healing work. And this is big, but you can do big movements. We're talking, I will drum over someone and I'm moving my whole body. I'm moving, and it's a dance. It really, I will, and I also, the drum is a symbol. It can
Yeah.
be many things. It's a portal, right? That's how I see it. It's a door and a portal to a different place that I'm stepping through. And it was the circular aspect of it connected to the moon. They say that the drum started like a threshing, and it was a threshing thing. You have that sound and that rhythm when you're doing the grain. And so this is the drum to me is very symbolic of women and the feminine. And then you have the masculine beater too. So what is this when these two come together? It's creation. To me, I'm creating, and I use the drum as a symbol even in dance or somatic work, or where I'm like, here's the sun. Then I do the moon, like we did a dance last night in my drum circle. Here's the moon moving through its phases, and it becomes different things. Here's a fish. Here's a turtle. The drum could be anything. It can become anything. But the sound, how do I say this? When you have intention behind it, sorry, I get all excited about it now. When I have intention behind the sound, then I'm creating whatever I want to create. So if I want to create a tree, I picture it in my mind. That's mindfulness, right? I put it in my mind, send it through the drum and the beater, and create with sound, just like the cymatics. I am creating a shape and a design. So if I want to create on someone healing, then I am sending that intention to them through the drum. So I've had people be like, I need more courage. Like we have a time in our drum circles where we put people in the center and we're drumming around them. I'm like, what do you want us to drum into you? And they'll say things like, oh, I just need to be able to find my voice and use my voice in my business or with my boss. And I'll be, okay, everyone, we're going to intend that into that person through sound and our mind combined. Or they need courage, or they need to feel more peace. The world's crazy right now. And the drum can be such a beautiful tool to get us into the space of mindfulness and presence. And it's not just the rhythms, it's the space between the rhythms. It's the silence where community connects and souls connect. So sound leads us across to each other, just like the ties on a drum pulling together. Sound leads us together, soul to soul.
One of the things that I have found about, especially being a pianist, is being a pianist tends to be fairly solitary. And we are a very social species. And I think that's one of the reasons that I love teaching is because we take this solitary journey and it becomes more of a collaboration between me and the student. But I also love performing for that same reason because it becomes this collaborative effort with my audience, especially because I've been in bands and things like that. And so then it becomes a collaboration with all of the people on the stage and this push and pull. And then there's also the crowd and everything. I just think that's amazing, and I love that it fosters this community, and I can only imagine that the drum helps everybody get on that same wavelength.
There's been a lot of scientific studies. People come in on different brave wave lengths into drum circle and they leave on the same one. In the sound healing world, they call that entrainment, which I'm sure you've heard before. When things start moving together, different things will start at different speeds and then they start moving together. But I want you to understand something. The drum and any instrument is not just for connecting others. It can be very solitary and it is connecting into your own soul. This morning I went out and drummed out in nature by myself, but I wasn't really by myself because a deer came and a hummingbird came and the sun came. I'm never alone, but same with, I think, when you sit at a piano, you're alone in that space, but it's allowing you to go deep in presence. And I think that sometimes music teachers forget that beautiful aspect of it. Why are you there? And this is one of my reasons my daughter quit violin. She was just getting assigned year after year these pieces, and she didn't choose them, and the teacher wasn't allow her to choose them because they wanted her to, of course, up her levels, but her heart wasn't in it. And when she was practicing alone in her room and she chose that music and got to flow with that music and her soul connection, it just makes me almost weepy. The music that came out of her. And so there's a balance I think that needs to be made in
Mhm.
in music
Definitely.
teaching for sure. And when they don't have teachers anymore, what are they going to do? Are they ever going to sit down? If they haven't discovered that beauty and connection in 10 years of piano teaching, if that hadn't happened, they won't ever sit down as adults.
I'm very passionate about trying to incorporate what my student wants to do in with, of course, like the scales and the repertoire pieces and things like that. Because, yeah, my teachers growing up, all really amazing, wonderful women, until I got to college and I had male professors and things. I would say, "Oh my gosh, I want to learn this piece. I have it. Let's learn it." And they would go, "Great, that's wonderful. Learn it on your own time." Thankfully, when I was a teenager, I changed to a teacher who tried to get in the best of both worlds. And so she found classical pieces that I liked. And she found that I really liked Debussy, who has lived in the late 1800s, early 1900s, impressionistic. Claire de Lune was probably his most famous
Yeah.
piece. And it's beautiful music. It's beautiful. But she found that I loved it and that I connected with it. So we played Chopin, we played Mozart, and then we would Debussy. And then we would play Liszt, and we would play Bach, and we would play all these things, and then we would play. She was like, "Okay, you like this? Let's go back to it."
She got it.
So that was something that was really special to me, that she took the time to say, "You love this. Let's do it. Let's do this other stuff too, but let's come back to this."
It reminds me of a book. It's called Soul Vows. But I just love what she said. Janet Connor talks about, and this might be work for mindfulness, since going back to that. I think what people need is to be in that presence and in that place of where music and soul can meet. And she talks about less media, more reading, less facts, more intuition, less consuming, more creating, which is one of my favorite things she says. Less talking and more listening. And I think that applies everywhere in society right now. Less noise and more silent, which is a funny thing for a drummer to say, but it's definitely true. And less like knowing and more unknowing. She has a list of things in there, but I love that. Just living in that mystery. If we can move into those spaces, less doing and more being.
It forces you to slow down, and it's saying, "Yes, all of this, but slow down."
Slow down.
There's a piano piece, technically it's a piano piece. It's not really, which anyways, but it's called 433 and it's written by a guy named John Cage, who was a experimental pianist in the 1950s, I think. Just a wild guy. He wrote crazy stuff. They were experimenting with the bounds of music and things.
Uh-huh.
He wrote 433, and in some ways it's a running joke in music. Basically, what the whole piece is you get up on stage, you sit down, you put up your music. Technically, it is memorized, but you set a timer for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. You close the lid of the piano and you sit there for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. And when he first did it, people were like, "What is are you doing?" When he explained, he said, "I want for everything to be music. I want to sit still and listen for 4 minutes and 33 seconds." And so the person coughing next to you, or the air conditioning turning on, or the birds chirping outside, or the dog barking in the distance, the car horns. Listen to that and be present. So it's not just that you're sitting there, you're actively so in some ways it is still a running joke because you don't do anything. But in some ways, it's one of the most pivotal pieces that was ever written because it does force us to rethink what's going on. What am I doing?
What you're talking about is cueing into the rhythms and the sounds all around you. Very, to me, that's the ultimate state of awareness because of the way I'm. Some people it's visual, some people it's other things. But for me, it's definitely my ears, right? I can be
Yeah.
so present when I'm listening and suddenly becoming aware of the things that I weren't like, who listens to the air conditioning, right? But when you really are like, oh, there it is, or a distant horn, or those kind of things. They're rhythms of life. Now take your focus and go inward, and you've got your heartbeat, your breath, maybe the sound your fingers make, your hair rustling against the back of your head, or you stand, these kind of things. Your blinking is a rhythm. Breathing in through your nose, that feeling. These are rhythms that they're in our bodies. But if you start becoming aware of that, do that for 4 minutes and 22 seconds. And that is a completely different space. And your thoughts are rhythms. Step away and back and observe your thought. What happens in that place? I saw this practice on Instagram and I started doing it last couple of weeks. And this guy just said, do this. Ask yourself, I wonder what my next thought would be. Have you?
I haven't.
All it is, it's making you step away from your thoughts and observe your thoughts. I wonder
Yeah.
what my next thought will be. And suddenly you're blank. I'm not kidding. You got to try this. You have no thought because you're just waiting for the next thought. And then you realize it's empty. You're in this space of emptiness. It gets you there that quick.
That's something that a lot of people struggle with.
Yes, being present and use whatever, even drumming on your body, rhythm on your body gets you there too. You might notice your students, have you noticed this? They'll be playing, practicing, and you're like, are you breathing?
I have had students where I have to remind them to breathe.
Gotten, and that means they're not in presence.
I find that also with if people have done an instrument like oboe or clarinet or something where they have to put in the breaths,
Oh, yeah.
sometimes they forget to breathe. And so then we'll like physically write in their breath marks. But I think again, it goes back to what you were saying. It's that presence. You have to be present.
One last thing, Nancy, because I think what music originally was for ritual and ceremony and expressing gratitude to source when you wake up. And that's what the birds do, right? They're like, yay, the day. And sometimes I think we've forgotten those original reasons for music. How can we incorporate that into our lives right now?
That reminds me, there's a composer who he actually wrote like West Side Story and a whole bunch of other things. But Leonard Bernstein, he did a series called The Origins of Music or something, and he
Uh-huh.
talks about that. And he talks about like where he thinks certain words come from and he talks about how he talks heavily about the overtone series, which is you're probably already aware of this. It's just the way that one note will vibrate
Yeah.
in space, which we talked about earlier, and then it will
Then there's
vibrate
the overtone.
yeah, and you get those overtone series. He's like, every culture in the world uses the same taunt. Like when you're like making fun of somebody, you're like, nah, 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 nah.
Uh-huh.
He's like, everybody has that. And those are the first three notes of the overtone series if you take out the original note. You can't tell me that's an accident because everybody has that. Everybody does. And every culture has some type of a lullaby with a minor third in it, which is also two of those overtone notes. You can't tell me that's an accident. That all comes from somewhere. He explains it way better. So if anybody's interested in that, I think you can
Yeah,
find
go
him on
down that rabbit hole because that sounds like a
yeah,
fun one to go down.
My gosh, it's amazing. It's wild and crazy, and he uses like all these crazy big words, and he was such an intellectual but amazing thing to go watch if you have a couple hours. As a kid, he was very long-winded.
The
Um,
greatest instrument is right here, and we're privileged souls to be in them.
do you have any advice for people?
I guess I can give advice now that I've had a few decades on the earth. I have different advice for different people, but I guess okay, let me just say overall, my advice is don't forget to tune into what you're most passionate about. And for each person, that's going to be a different thing. But you have a light and purpose and mission to do. There's something you're here to do. And as teachers, if you're a student or a teacher, student, this is what you're supposed to find. Teacher, it's your job to pull that out and guide them to find it. And
Mhm.
it's the most important thing, the one thing. That's how I feel for each person.
Thank you again so much, Melanie. I have thoroughly enjoyed
I
our
have
chat.
to. You're one very blessed and lucky to have you. They are.
Thank you so much. I try. Some days I succeed, but I definitely try. Absolutely. Just to refresh everybody's memory, this is Melonie Cannon from Moonstone Drums and Earth and Sky. And you can find her on Facebook at Moonstone Drums and Meditation, and Instagram at underscore Melonie dot Cannon underscore.
Melonie with an O, like a drum.
Oh, that's true. Yes,
Oh,
Melonie and then
thank you.
Cannon. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And everyone have a wonderful rest of your day.